family, it's Tasha MAMABEAR Prepping. So you already know what time it is. Get your drink, pull up, let's talk about it. Today I want to talk about, well, first I want to say thank you for my cup from one of my subscribers. She sent me this beautiful mug. I'm super excited. It's a nice big size mug and it just brightened up my day. So sister, girlfriend, thank you for this. From one mother to another mother. Thank you. So welcome to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about some stuff that happened over the weekend. So if you didn't hear already, the grid was attacked in North Carolina, in a county in Moore County. And at first they just thought it was a normal blackout, grid down, whatever. And once they went out and started checking the scene, checking to fix it, to correct it, they quickly realized that it actually had been attacked, right? It had actually been shot up. And so it was 100% on purpose, and it was several substations. It wasn't just like one location. It was several of them in that county. And of course, so they lost power, obviously, right? And that county had, thousands upon, tens of thousands without power. And as of this morning, there's still tens of thousands without power, right? Looked up their temperatures right now, the temperature wise, like it's cold where I'm at right now. And it's not too bad where they're at, right? 40s at night, 50s, and it's going to go up to 60s. So that to me is a blessing when you have a little bit warmer temperatures and you're not talking about 20s in the nighttime, 30s, and you have no power, right? This is the first thing I think about. And I kind of just wanted to walk through, like, that's the exact same stuff that we prepare for, and why we get the things we get is to prepare for a grid down situation. One of the number one things I tell people to prep when they're brand new and they're like, besides, look, food, water, meds, get a plan together with how you're going to go about getting the food. But eventually, when you kind of step out of that, if you prepare for a grid down situation, you're going to be prepared for a lot of things. That's why people that prepare for a certain thing, some of those things like storm wise, they are ready for a lot of things. They're ready for grid down because they're preparing for something else. Like people who prepare for hurricanes, ideally they're preparing for a grid down situation because in that situation you lose power, and so a lot of the stuff lines up. So that's kind of where you start and you build upon that. And so I'm just going to walk you through some areas, some things to think about for when you lose power. Now, a lot of people, and for me, the biggest concern is that when you lose power, if it's a short amount of time, something minor happened and they go about fixing it, and maybe it's a couple hours, maybe even something a little bit major and it's a couple days, right? To me, that's all short-term type scenarios, right? It's not that big of a deal in end of the world. You're prepared for that, and your supplies should absolutely help you handle a couple day situation, even a week, right? But when we talk about long-term, that's where things start to go left. You talk about no power, you're talking about the water treatment plant being affected now, which means your water being affected. That's your sewer plant, so your sewer, your toilets, that being backed up and that being a situation. Even to gas, even people who have other ways of heating their homes or doing things in their home have to think this through, because, yes, that is helpful that you can turn those things on when you lose power. Let's say you lose electrical heating power, you turn on a gas stove, or you have whatever. That's helpful, but when we talk about long-term power loss, eventually that stuff could run out. Power is powering everything, right? Generators and different things that are regulating that gas and regulating the water and regulating and helping with the sewer system and running those systems, right? And unless they have a major backup, that's going to be other issues that you're going to have to be concerned with. Okay. So think outside the box when we talk about electricity. Think about you losing water, you losing sewer as well when you think about that. Next thing I want to talk about is just kind of run through some stuff. So I think it's important to have an emergency lighting kit. I don't like kits so much. I think it is important when you're first learning to put together something, to have one place where you kind of have all the lanterns, you have a few flashlights, you have extra batteries, and it can be your go-to. There's an emergency and you can immediately go to this kit and get some immediate items that you might need, right? A flashlight, a lantern, maybe some string lights, maybe some batteries, maybe some glow sticks, whatever, right? And have some basics. But I think it's very, very important to stage things within your home and to ensure that everybody knows where they're at. Meaning this, in my home, I have lanterns in every single room area of the house, right? I never want to be caught somewhere in the house. It's dark and I'm fumbling around trying to get through the house in the dark to get to a box or to get to something. Whereas if it's staged, and literally I have oil lamp staged, I have battery lantern staged, I have flashlight staged, I have stuff everywhere. I mean, even our everyday flashlight, it literally sits on the table. It's an everyday flashlight that is used for anything. It's not in a toolbox, it's not in a drawer. It literally sits on the table, okay? And we use it at night if we have to go out and get something for one of the animals. We use it if we want to just take a look at something, we lose power, whatever. That one flashlight is staged, everybody in the house knows where it's at. And then knowing where things are at, where are the batteries, having stuff staged a little bit everywhere. We have lighters and matches and batteries in one location, but we have a little bit staged in different locations for various things, right? I have candles staged. So there's several things that are staged, and I think having stuff staged really helps with just peace of mind of knowing, hey, you know where it's at, you see it every single day, you know where the stuff is to light it or to start it, turn it on, whatever, and you're good to go, okay? So staging your flashlights, your lanterns, staging stuff. But I think it is smart to have kind of like, especially if let's say you have everything staged, and that's pretty good, right? And then you have this box, and then you're continuing to stockpile this stuff, right? You're continuing to stock up your backups, your batteries, your backup batteries, matches, whatever it is. And so having that stuff in totes or a certain area of a dresser or whatever. But I think it's smart to have something that you can grab that maybe has a little bit more in-depth items that might need to be needed, okay? All right. And I'll go further and if you can make that kit not be so big, then that kit could possibly, that whole small tote of extra stuff could possibly go into a Faraday cage or a Faraday box, or if you've made some sort of Faraday, that stuff can go in there. And it's not necessarily that, EMP and stuff like that might get to that, but if you've built a box that has a few things in there, for specifically grid down, lights out, it might behoove you to have that stuff in a Faraday cage, right? Because you might have, what's an example? You might have some little radios or something in there as well as part of that electrical box. It doesn't have to just be like the items that I mentioned, right? There might be other kind of grid down type items, go items that you want to kind of have and know where they're at in that box. And so if you do have a lot of that type of stuff, for sure putting that in there, okay? All right, next thing I have is your cooking and serving plans. So this comes down to how are you cooking, right? What's your cooking source with grid down? So what are you cooking in? The utensils, the pans, your pans that you cook with in the kitchen may not be safe enough to use on an open fire, on a barbecue or even a fire pit. So do you have the right pans, the right utensils to use and to cook with over a fire, or whatever other cooking source you're using? Do you have the utensils and appropriate pans to use on that thing? Even if it's a little burner, right? That's just a propane burner, a camp stove. Do you have the right pans for that? Do you have the right utensils? You don't want to burn stuff up. Serving, you're not trying to do dishes. So having your paper plates and your or bowls or the silverware or cups, whatever it is, what are you serving it into, and how does that help with your cleanup or whatever the case may be? So think through your cooking and serving plan. Next I have, can you communicate? So what's your communication plan? At a minimum, what's your receiving plan to receive information? So you've got to have at a minimum a shortwave, a small AM, FM receivable radio so that you can get, hopefully at a minimum, you're getting intel and information in from the local broadcasting, emergency broadcasting, so that you're understanding what's going on to some degree, right? Now, if something is a smaller thing, more county, it was just the grid, who knows how that affected their phone lines, their cell phones, whatever. But because it was one county, other people, other neighboring counties were live and can figure out what's going on, and you can get help and you can get a lot of information very quickly. Obviously, us on the outside got information quickly because we're still up and running, right, on the grid. But you have to have a way to understand and be able to get information to understand what's happening. This is important because there might be things that you need to do, or that they want you to do, or they want you to let you know is happening, so that you would want to know if the sewer system is shutting down and they're warning people that they need to protect their homes from backup, and this is the things you do to protect it. Like, you would want to know that emergency information coming in, stuff like maybe emergencies coming in and they're telling people where to get food and water for those that don't prepare, for example. We prepare so you don't have to go out and do those things and get those things. You don't have to stand in line for propane. You don't have to stand in line for food, water. But this is how you're getting that information, okay? You've got to have at a basic AM, FM receivable and have a way to receive information. And then you can upscale it from there if you want to be able to discuss and have a ham radio, talk back, whatever. Walkie-talkies are great for inner circle communications, even neighborhood communication with neighbors, right? So take a look at your options, but you need to have a basic radio and a way to receive information. The next thing I have is your heating and cooling plan, right? If it's winter, that's the first thing I looked up when I heard the story is, wow, I know that there's a ton of storms, just wintry storms and weather going across the country. And so my first thought was, these poor people, what's the temperature there, right? Because people die in lower temperatures, and you talk about, you lose power for even 24 hours can kill people, right? And so how do you have those things prepped up to take care of your family, to keep them warm, or to keep the house cool? Let's say if it's the summertime and it's super hot and now the ACs won't work. But to me, winter weather is the most dangerous, right? And so winter weather gear, sleeping bags, your extra blankets, your alternate heating sources, right? What do you do if you don't have your electrical heat? Do you have a fireplace? Do you have a fire wood stove? Do you have a gas stove, like pellet stove? What do you have that's extra, that doesn't take electricity, that is powered by something else, to heat your home? Maybe it's something that's heated and it's kerosene, or it's propane heater, or there's some other type of source. But what is the way that you're heating your home, and what is the plan for that? You're not going to be able to possibly heat the whole room depending on what is your alternate heating source, okay? So think big if you have the money and you're thinking through your house and you're thinking through your options. Wood stove, you want to have wood stove, a fireplace. So for anybody that's kind of on the market for a homestead and a new place to live and things like that, to me, it's water sources, it's wood sources, and is there a fireplace? Is there a wood stove? But wood burning option, okay? So heating and cooling plan. Next is your security and your lighting plan. A lot of people have, Ring cameras and different cameras around your house and different lights lighting your house and locks and all that good stuff. And that's great. But you lose electricity. A lot of people lose that stuff. You lose your home security system. Maybe you have a keypad where you put in a number and, your stuff is secure, right? That stuff goes down, right? You're not going to have that stuff or be able to see possibly. So what is the plan for security, for increasing security? Maybe it's motion sensor lights in certain areas so that you still have lighting outside in certain areas. Maybe it's having CCTVs, something that's a low level power source, right, that you have hooked up. You can just hook those up and and still be able to have eyes on and see stuff that's happening. Maybe you don't have all the cameras you had before, but just having one or two placed that's a CCTV, and then you can run that with a solar generator or a generator, and it's a low level. And then the last thing I have is hygiene and cleaning, right? You know, when you first lose power, I'm not necessarily thinking about laundry right away, right? Or even showers. I'm thinking, how do we heat our home? How do I cook for my family? How do we see the things we need to be able to see? And keeping everybody calm, right? Later, as it develops, you start thinking about those other things. Okay, we've got laundry now. What's our cleaning situation? How are we cleaning any dishes that we are using? How are we cleaning ourselves? What is our hygiene level? What's our sanitation level? How's the trash doing? How's the toilet situation going? Have we had to move to buckets or a different way because of backup or sewer? Even if you're like us in the septic, you know, which is pressurized now, which is powered, you know, how does that change our game in regards to being able to still get that system working, right? Still being able to use the toilet, stuff goes out, but being able to run that pump from time to time so that the system, the water treatment system, will still continue to do its thing, right? Those are things to think about. People on homesteads and that have wells, right? A lot of those are, you know, on power, on grid. And so it becomes, how do you get that water out of the ground, you know, without power? So having these hand pumps and having other ways to do that is important, right? But I think that if you think about food, water, meds, and you think about the things I talked about for grid down, and you just think about your everyday, what you do every day. You wake up and I do this. How would no power affect doing those things, and then get those things that are needed to continue to be able to do those things, okay? And you know, a lot of people are very overwhelmed, like it's too much stuff. But I think that if you literally go through and wake up and you have a notepad and you're literally taking notes of all the things you did throughout the day and how specifically power is involved in it, and then how you would then change that item, that thing you're doing. Let's say you're cooking breakfast. I cook it on an electric stove every day. Okay, how does that change? I have no power now. How do I still make that breakfast for my family? Is it on the barbecue? Am I pulling out a camp stove? Is it on the open fire, maybe a fire pit? Do I have a wood stove and I'm cooking something on top? Like, what is it exactly that you're cooking? And then what's the fuel source? And making sure that you've prepped that, right? All ways to cook in your home with propane, with butane, with alcohol. There's a lot of ways to cook food with different various, you know, stoves and whatever. So there's a lot of variety out there and a lot of options. And my opinion is you always have a few of those options in case something doesn't really kind of work out, or isn't really beneficial to your everyday, you know, plan and what you're doing. And just because stuff happens and you never know when something fails on you, doesn't work, whatever the case may be. And so you always want to have multiple backups to stuff, okay? So I hope this was helpful. You know, prayers to people in Moore County. Thankful for the weather-ish. I'm sure for some of them, you know, that 40-degree weather is still can be pretty cold, right? Especially when you talk about a society that's really conditioned to air conditioning and really warm, you know, home, and even acclimating to 40-degree weather can be difficult for some people to do. So I hopefully, you know, send prayers for those folks that still don't have power, that they get power soon, and that this is an isolated event and that nothing else is going to pop off. I tell you guys, you should prepare for grid attacks, because whether it's ingrown, meaning somebody in our country decides to do that, right? Or if it's an enemy, you know, our infrastructure is trash. It's very, very old. It has not been kept up to date. And it really wouldn't take that much of a coordinated effort to take it down across the board, meaning across the United States. It wouldn't take that big of a coordination to do that. And so knowing that, and knowing the different things and other grids that folks have tried to attack in years past, like our water grid in a few different states, it's important to know that things are getting crazy, and this is coming down the pipeline one day. This is going to get bad. It's going to get attacked, or it's going to fail. That's the other thing too. It doesn't necessarily take somebody attacking it just a fail in the system because it's trash. It's so old. We do not spend money on this stuff. We have these bills passed with billions of dollars that's supposed to be for infrastructure, and yet our infrastructure is still not up to par. So my 2 cents. I'm gonna drink my coffee out of my mug, and I hope you guys have a blessed day. Take care. Bye.